Customer engagement and sustainable energy transition were by far the top talking points at one of the largest energy and utility events that happened this past summer. Of course, we're talking about E-World Essen 2022, and what a great event it was, bringing thousands of exhibitors and attendees all together for the first time since the pandemic. It was so great to be there in person, and fantastic to talk to so many people about the trends and challenges they're seeing in the industry. So with that, let's take a look back on what was E-World 2022 on this episode of Plugged In. Hello and welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Plugged In, of course, our energy and utility podcast that takes a deep dive into the world of energy and utilities, talking about the challenges, solutions, and great innovations that spark great conversation and ideation within the industry. Now, in this episode, we are jumping back to E-World Essen 2022, the industry's largest European event that was held this summer in beautiful Essen, Germany. It really was a fantastic and a huge event, one of the largest I've been to, and it was absolutely fantastic to, again, see everyone after the pandemic and to bring the entire industry together to talk about some of the latest and greatest solutions. Now, during the event, we did talk to a bunch of attendees and exhibitors, and we were basically able to put every discussion into two different categories. Of course, as you heard in the introduction, that is customer engagement and the solutions and innovations around that, and the one everyone was talking about as well, the shift to long-term sustainability. Now, accompanying me on this episode, I'm very excited to welcome a fresh new voice to the show. Our very own Thomas Mörtl-Zimmerer is a sales executive here at Anyline, specializing in energy and utilities. And he was with us at the show, so it's going to be great to have his feedback and to hear what he thinks about some of the interviews we had and some of the main topics. Thomas, welcome to the show. Great to have you with me. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to, looking back to what was a fantastic event.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be on the show.
Perfect. So let's jump right in. Now, without a doubt, the most talked about topic that we heard at the show was surrounding customer engagement, the demand for more customer engagement from users, and how operators are kind of delivering that. Now, we heard from Claire Gotham earlier in our series here on Plugged In, and how the energy industry is shifting from a very linear model where basically the operator dictates what comes across now to a more customer-centric model where the customer has more say in what comes. So we'll hear from some quotes from people we spoke to at the show. But before we do that, I'd love to just kind of get your initial impressions on, obviously, this change in how the operations are going from linear to customer-centric. How have you seen that in the work you've done and the clients you've spoken to so far?
Changing to a customer-centric approach is something that we've seen in many industries in the past few years. Mm-hmm. Retail is a great example for that. Mm-hmm. Some of the biggest brands in the world got very successful with it. The energy sector has been a bit on a later train, but is now fully driving in that direction, and not just since the beginning of the energy crisis. I would say that today's companies and energy providers are aiming for basically three things. The first thing is transition its energy generation sources from fossil fuels to renewables. That's a very important topic, obviously. Another one is digitizing the grid, being or enabling basically a decentralized power generation, a greater use of renewable energies, and also very important, a better energy management amongst the customers. And the third topic, which is also really important, is improve the customer experience with new products and services, increasingly delivered through digital channels, as we know. So mobile apps, even WhatsApp integrations, what I heard also at the event. And as it was also with customers that we're talking on a daily basis, many new integrations on various channels. All of that leads to a higher demand for interaction with customers. And customers are a lot more focused on those topics and invest in those resources. So not developing in that direction would mean a higher risk of churn and ultimately leading to a loss of market share.
Yeah, I like how you brought up churn because we'll hear about that from one of the interviews we spoke to just in a few moments here. The shift that we've seen, and as you said, customers are becoming more aware, but utility is one of the later ones to have this happen. Do you think the events of the last couple of years have made that more of a thing now? We had supply chain issues. Everyone became more of things that they weren't aware of before. Energy seems to be like one of those. Without the events of the last year, would this still have happened now, or do you think it would have happened later?
I think it would have happened, but a lot slower than it now is. So the events happening this year, and also you mentioned the supply chain issues during the pandemic. These were moments where things fastened a lot, obviously.
Yeah, everything's just wound up, and we saw that in other industries as we saw. But utility now has its chance to make this transition.
It's a big momentum.
Yeah, and they need to carry through. And as we'll talk about later, this is no longer really a need to have. This is a shift that is taking place.
I always say it's not a feel-good topic anymore.
Yeah.
It's a top priority strategic topic.
It's the Darwin theory of evolution for companies at this point. Those that don't adapt will die.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, we'll address that later on. So first off, we want to go to an interview we had with Patrick Larm. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Bright. They're a digital platform that enables an enhanced customer journey, gathered all in one application. So we spoke to Patrick. We had a great interview. You can listen to a previous podcast with him to get the full interview. But here's what we said. Here's what he said when we asked him about why customer-centric shift is taking place now and so late behind the other industry. So here's what Patrick had to say.
The short answer is churn. So the companies kind of understand that they are starting to lose clients. And I think in order to get some perspective with regards to this topic, taking a step back and also remembering that churn has always been a general concern of the business, right? However, with more educated consumers and rising prices, that becomes a very hard reality. And also if you add sustainability and the ESG agenda to this, you get a very interesting mix of topics. And I think when it comes to both consumption, I mean, everybody wants a low electricity bill, right? Yeah. But we also see a shift in trend where people want to make educated choices, smart choices. You want to be more environmental friendly. You want to reduce your CO2 and your environmental impact. And in order to do that, you need to transfer the use of energy to better hours of the day. And I think this requires insights and data, right? So, and the possibility to communicate, visualize these insights, and to provide guidance and recommendations. That's sort of the essence of the matter, I would say.
So a great statement and a great collective group of thoughts there from Patrick. Lots to unpack. But let's talk about the main one, obviously churn. He started the conversation off with that. It's clearly one you brought up as well. It's a big factor that's causing this shift. So now that they're finally having to adjust, rather they got away with it before. So now, because churn is such a big deal, later in that podcast, he actually went on to say that those who don't use customer engagement tactics, 40% of people will leave them. I mean, it's insane. Like that churn is a massive number, 40%. That's huge. What are your thoughts on what Patrick had to say? I mean, again, he mentioned a lot, but let's just start off with that churn topic.
Well, I totally agree. Yeah. We talked about digitizing the grid before, which is surely one of the topics at the moment. By the way, we at Anyline are also serving as kind of a bridge to making this step easier for companies. Customers nowadays are more and more expecting access to all the data as they want, and also Patrick said that, as they want to be in charge to be able to make strategic decisions themselves. Energy overall and energy management became a high priority strategic topic. Why is that so important? It's for better energy management, for predictive analytics, which is the basis for decisions. All that leading to a higher efficiency and cost reduction. So we're not talking about churn only, but also immediate cost reduction. Mm-hmm. And overall, it's not only just a legal matter, so reducing carbon emissions, but also becomes also a commercial matter. And so there's a huge momentum. I remember a famous quote from a few years ago. It was, "Every company will become a tech company." Mm-hmm. The initial quote was from Steve Brown, but it was, used a lot of time. And later on, a similar quote was used, which was, "Every company will become a data company." So that is very much true. It became very much true, and it is still and will be true. In a way, an energy company is a data company. And who knows, maybe we will say in a few years, every company is an energy company because just of the importance of those topics. But overall, as I said, it's really not only a legal matter, but it's also a commercial matter, and that is the key.
Yeah, well, we'll take that quote from you and we'll see if it sticks in the next couple of years. And someone else on some other show will be saying, Thomas said, every company will be an energy company.
But I'm not the only one who's saying that.
No, of course. I mean, data is key, I think, to a lot of this. And now with the integration of smart meters and smart data capture and the ability that not everything is analog, energy providers and operators, they have access to an unprecedented amount of data, more than they've ever had. They just have to convert that into a user-friendly experience that gives us, the consumer, the ability to access that data and improve our lives off of it. And I think that's where connecting these dots will make people want to stick with these companies. And those that don't do that, they'll go to one that can.
Exactly. There lies the difference. This is really where the difference is between those companies.
And it's a big gap. I think it's either do it or don't. There's kind of really no middle zone on this. You can collect it, but if you don't give us access to it,
if you are in the middle zone, you lost.
You're not even. You haven't gotten above the waterline.
Exactly.
That's perfect. So talking about data and tech companies, I want to jump to a conversation we had with Nune Izabekian. She's the CTO at Connect AI. Fantastic company. They're a continuously learning platform for proactive, personalized, and automated customer care, which is a big topic now and something we're seeing a lot more companies get into. I asked Nune about how much of a buzzword customer-centric actually is and what it really means for operators. We hear the term a lot. So here's what she had to say on that buzzword.
It does, but it also, for me, is a synonym of quality. Mm-hmm. How else do you prove your quality if not providing the experience for the customer? And everybody wants to feel special. That's why people want to talk with a human agent. They don't want to talk with a bot, right? But the question here is, what if the bot is treating you special? What if we use AI and ML technologies to provide you this feeling of being special? That's where I think all the technologies kick in to satisfy the need of the customers to feel special, to feel treated in a high quality, but also, why not save the money on the side of the provider by automating things as much as possible.
So I really like how she connected the enhanced customer engagement that AI can give. She connected it to AI and machine learning, something, again, that are big in the industry, something we know a lot about with what we do, of course. Now, based on what she said, do you think operators are actually ready to go that far yet? Are we at that point, or is it still kind of a discovery phase? What do you think based on the conversations you're having?
We are at a very interesting phase, let's put it that way.
Okay.
People want personal contact. People still want personal contact. They want to feel treated well and in a personal way. Nowadays, it is even more challenging for operators to provide that. Mm-hmm. At the moment, we are having rising energy costs, etc. If you call an energy provider today, you're going to wait an hour in the line.
True.
And then you get to an exhausted person on the other side of the line. And that's not a very fulfilling customer experience, first of all, but it's also not fulfilling for the operator. So the key is really to connect the best of both worlds in a way, at least for the majority of cases. There will be always some special cases, obviously, but for the majority of cases. So an energy provider has basically two options. Either you invest in more human resources, those jobs are rather low paid and not very attractive. Or you invest in innovation and technology and solve those challenges in a smart and sustainable way. So I think the future is going to be a bit of a hybrid. There will be, of course, personal contacts. They need to be there. But a part of the business will be with AI.
Yeah. When Nina was saying how this AI technology can create a personal experience based on technology and based on how it learns your habits, I think obviously eventually we will get to that point. I think the big shift in what you said is that the people, like the human resource aspect. There's a lot of people, like these jobs are not as easy to come by as they were before. Not a lot of people want to work them anymore.
Exactly.
And that creates a shortage. So that's where that gap is now. I mean, even, my own personal energy services now, I think I've had an email go unanswered for 3 or 4 weeks now. I won't name the company, but this is a reality for the majority of people around the world, is you send on the phone for hours or you send emails and you don't get responses on stuff that you could, become a better engaged customer with the energy industry. So that's a gap. And I think with people becoming less frequency, these jobs becoming less appealing, we have to lean on the other side, as you said, to the tech side. Our generation, I think, coming up is maybe more accepting of that. We just kind of want answers. We want personal contact, but we want answers. So maybe we have to learn to give and take, I think, a little bit, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, the big topic above all that is the one of the questions, the main questions related to technology that we will be thinking a lot about in the coming years, which is really the part of AI in our daily life. Mm-hmm. Also talking about robots. I mean, this is all around already. The topic itself, also from a legal perspective and so on. So there's a lot above it, and we need to make step by step to get and step into a better future. But one thing maybe here also from my side, because this AI is sometimes viewed as a negative topic, because it replaces jobs that real people have. And I think what we talked about just before was a great example. We're having a shortage. The companies don't find the people anymore. And so it's the smartest way to replace that with powerful technology that serves the need, but enables the people who do those jobs or did those jobs, making or getting jobs that are more fulfilling for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and taking those people that are working, exactly, and giving them more meaning in the company. Maybe they handle more serious issues or more complicated tasks, and make them better as well. So it's no longer a fear of losing employees, but it's enhancing employees.
Absolutely.
I love it. Perfect. Good. So let's move on to the other most talked about topic during the show, and that's, of course, this massive shift to sustainable energy. This is nothing new. I think we've heard this word sustainable energy for the past decade, 2 decades. But I was really surprised at the show to see to the degree of which companies were showcasing their move to sustainable energy. Companies suddenly have green logos, plants hanging from their displays. They've really showing that they're making this shift. Clearly not a PR stunt anymore, based on what we saw and what we're seeing in the world right now. It simply cannot be a PR thing anymore. It has to be reality based on what's happening in Europe right now, what's happening around the world with energy shortages, massive heat waves, all of these things. So I'd love to bring you in on this topic and get your impressions of the show based on what you saw brands doing. Do you feel like brands are truly committing to this shift at this point, or is there still a little bit of greenwashing show?
Well, we are talking about a process here.
Yes.
Nothing that can be changed overnight or in the matter of a few weeks. This demands long-term thinking and investing in innovation and technology. We could see that companies and providers are at different stages in the process, but the great majority is following that path. That was clear for me as well.
Yeah.
Sustainability and energy are highly strategic topics. We said that before. In the years to come, they will be some of the deciding factors, I would say, for business success. So there's a clear interest in those topics. If you would have asked me that questions a few years ago, my answer would have been a bit different, maybe. But seriously, like mentioned before, states and public entities committed to the shift. So it already became a legal matter. This is one side of the game, and it's important. The key success in that process, and I said that before, but I want to repeat that. The key point to success here is that the process and that the whole process and everything connected to that needs to be commercially viable. Mm-hmm. The market and the customer, they are more and more moving into that direction. And so then it becomes also a commercial matter. And this is the key. It has to be commercially viable. If it is, then companies will follow very quickly.
So that's what the glue, that's what's going to make it stick, is commercial viability.
Yes, I would say so.
Makes sense, yeah, because there has to be more than just one or two benefits. It has to make sense for the operation.
Exactly. And, a few years ago, or like 5 years ago, we have not been at the same stage as we are now.
Yeah.
But now we are at the stage, I think, where this becomes more and more commercially viable.
Yeah,
and
that shift has happened where it actually makes sense on a business level to do it.
Absolutely.
Rather than before it was a nice thing to have.
Well, it was a nice thing to have, maybe a bit more than that. I think what I said, the legal part,
yeah, true.
that came, but that alone is not enough. Mm-hmm. It would drive things as well, but not in the pace and in the speed that we needed.
Yeah.
But if it's commercially viable, then this gets a lot faster.
Makes sense. Perfect. So let's jump to an interview that we had at the show. This was a really good talk. One from a company called Naked Energy, one that's producing a lot of new innovations in the industry. We sat down with the CEO, Christoph Williams, and asked him what he thinks will drive long-term sustainability, and not just this ongoing short steps, but what will actually make it stick. Something like we were just talking about as well. So here's what Christoph had to say when we asked him that.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think if you're a business, you need to make sure that you're looking at the whole system. You're not just trying to plug one hole. That you need to look at if you are, say, running a hotel or a leisure centre, you need to make sure you're looking at the entire energy envelope and the building envelope. So you've got to look at efficiency. You need to make sure that you're buying products that are high quality, because otherwise it's a false economy. You'll be changing it again in 3-4 years' time. So I think that's really important, is to make sure that you're buying from reputable organizations, but also that the design work is done right. Because when you rush, you don't think things through, or you don't design them properly. And in the space that we're in, we're very much focused on the heat sector, because heat is more than half of all the energy we actually consume on the planet. Maybe a lot of your listeners might not even realize that.
I never would have even thought it.
Yeah, so the amount of electricity we use on this planet is 17% of all energy. Jeez. The amount of heat we need to heat and cool buildings is 51%. It's staggering.
That is staggering.
But and not only is that staggering, 90% of that heat energy comes from fossil fuels. So, part of my job is to raise awareness about this challenge, and I'm doing a talk in a few minutes in the other hall about decarbonisation of heat, because unless we decarbonise heat, we're not going to get to net zero or carbon zero. So it's critically important, because it's also 40% of all emissions globally.
Some big numbers, good stat guy, lots of big numbers, and I'm still blown away by those numbers when he shares them. A couple points from what Christoph mentioned that I want to unpack a little bit. And first of all, it's about not just plugging a single hole or a gap, but actually addressing the whole system. Like you said, the business viability option, but again, not just getting a single solution that does one thing, really looking at the whole system, not just Band-Aids everywhere to plug things up. Based on your conversations, are operators thinking this way, or are they still thinking about just there's a problem here, let's fix that, there's a problem here, let's fix that, rather than addressing the whole situation? So
first of all, I could not agree more. Mm-hmm. It is actually quite remarkable that also in the media, the topic of heating is getting much less attention than electricity. Tesla and others are getting a lot of attention in the media. They know the game. Looking at the numbers, the far bigger challenge lies in heating.
Yeah.
And raising efficiency, which is a data game, in parts at least, and investing in key innovations is a key. As the development cycles and the investment cycles for energy topics are rather decades than just a few years, I think it's immensely important to set up the right strategy. And we see this also in other sectors. For example, the automotive industry or the whole mobility sector, which is also heavily connected to the energy sector nowadays, and an industry that we are quite familiar with at Anyline. So these are all areas where you need to implement long-term thinking and strategic planning rather than short-term fixes.
Fix this now, reactive strategy.
Exactly.
So thinking proactive, again, looking at the entire operation rather than just a single problem is what's going to cause a long-term shift, because you're actually changing the culture of the organization at a deeper level than just a product fix or a patch.
A product fix potentially can be done depends on the issue, but within a few hours or maybe a few days. But this is not something that you can approach in that way.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So the other thing that Christoph mentioned that I want to bring up is the call that he's making to businesses and providers to invest in high quality solutions, not just much of the solutions on the bottom shelf or single function devices, which again are maybe more of those reactive strategic things. So based on what he said here, those solutions, they may cost more, but they'll cover a wider range of solutions. Again, they're more on the deeper strategic level. Even though they'll cost you more up front, you're working with something that will grow with you as part of your organization rather than just a thing of the past. This is definitely the way forward, no question, right?
Absolutely, and we take the same approach here at Anyline. That's for sure. We talked about the shift in energy before and during all the conversation. And it is a process that takes long-term thinking, smart decisions, and also the right investments, which is not always easy. Short-term thinking or decisions based on just short-term cost reductions, so quarterly thinking, basically, in that relation potentially results in higher costs and efforts needed long-term. So that can potentially also mean that the costs are doubling and the output is not what you were aiming for. So the question in energy especially is really to take this approach with long-term planning, but also think through very well where you invest and what the next steps you're doing. So the key is to invest or decide for more premium tools. I agree with that, that are capable of doing more tasks and not doing more tasks only, but also doing them better and looking at those rather than looking at those multiple tools that are cheap. So that's I think the key and the way to go.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where it all lies, and we support that thought process as well, and that's what makes our business successful and gives us the advantage to work with companies to build solutions rather than just off the shelf. And I think that's where you get the benefit of a whole system design rather than just plucking something off the shelf. You can work with a company on a deep strategic level to develop these solutions, even if they need further innovation, which of course we have something that we have worked with in the past as well. So that's definitely where I think long-term sticks.
Absolutely.
Christoph mentioned it, and I think you just further enhanced that point.
Absolutely, and as I said, this is the same approach we've chosen here at Anyline, and it already proved to be the right way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. A perfect close to the conversation. I think we've summarized the show well. Again, a really great show. These two topics were our standout points. There were lots more discussions. The little interviews that we heard, of course, there's full episodes, so everyone can go listen to those as well. But Thomas, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you being here and, of course, the insights of the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was great fun.
Absolutely. And for everyone watching, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Plugged In. It was great to have you with me. Hopefully you've learned a little bit today as well about some of the upcoming challenges and possible solutions and innovations of the energy industry. Of course, a great look back to E-World Essen 2022. We had a great time, so a big thank you to the show for organizing a fantastic event, and a big thank you to all the exhibitors and attendees that we spoke to. Thank you for your thoughts, and thank you for coming by to say hello. With that, we'll bring this episode to a close. If you have any questions about what you heard today, Thomas and mine, LinkedIn will be in the description of this video, as well as the links to the other interviews that you heard segments of, so go ahead and have a look there. But until the very next episode of Plugged In, which will of course come very soon, wishing you all a fantastic day wherever in the world you may be, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now.